Bath salts are a nasty category of drug that people use because they're cheap and widely accessible. They're called bath salts because people sell them illegally as bath salts or cleaning supplies as a way to get around the DEA and other regulators and sell these gray market drugs to consumers. People smoke them because they give them an intense high and they're really cheap. The problem is they cause psychosis, anxiety, and a bunch of other really, really bad reactions. In fact, in 2012, President Obama banned about 20 bath salts because they were causing so much trouble.
Get out of here.
The consequence of banning the bath salts is that you can no longer get them in gas stations or smoke shops, but people can still get bath salts, not really legally, but not really illegally, over the internet. They're chemicals that you spray on cannabis and then you smoke. They tickle our endocannabinoid receptors, which are the same receptors that cannabis tickles. The problem is they're like hundreds to thousands of times stronger than cannabis.
I can't remember when I've had a more pleasant day.
I remember watching a video once of a young kid, like 16, sitting in the police station, smoking a cigarette and very considerately dumping the ashes in to an ashtray, waiting for the police to bust him for using bath salts. The problem is there was no cigarette. He was absolutely, completely hallucinating this fake cigarette. He was enjoying the cigarette, but he was delusional and psychotic. Of course, I could make a joke and say maybe this is a safe way to smoke cigarettes, but that's for another day. There's also a patient I had in the addiction clinic. We successfully treated them for fentanyl addiction with methadone, which is what we do and we save lives. But they were also using bath salts and they were so addicted. They'd use them every night to fall asleep. They'd last only 3 to 4 hours. There's a vicious withdrawal syndrome from bath salts, and the patient would wake up every night, anxiety, sweats, panic, and they'd have to go out and buy another $5 bag of bath salts. As it is today, anybody can get bath salts over the internet. You know, ironically, there was a really good survey of bath salt users, and 54% of people found them really unpleasant to use, and only 17% found them pleasant to use, which raises the question of why on earth people use bath salts instead of cannabis. I did ask my patient that, and he said that their cannabis just wasn't strong enough and didn't put him to sleep. I, of course, would then argue, why don't you talk to your doctor and get a medication that will put you to sleep, not use this highly dangerous medication that's illegal and can cause all kinds of problems. The syndrome, if you get psychosis, we have to treat it in the emergency room with an antipsychotic. If you have severe anxiety, we usually give you a benzodiazepine, such as Ativan, Klonopin, or Valium to get you to come down. But it's a really ugly drug that causes a really ugly syndrome. I would say, and this is going to shock people who have been following my Substack and my videos, that this is one drug that I would never, ever try. I sort of believe in trying these things so I could speak intelligently about them, but I am terrified of bath salts. Now, what to do about bath salts? President Obama tried to ban them. It didn't work. There's still hundreds of them on the market. There's no regulation whatsoever. You have no idea what you're getting, which is part of why it's so dangerous. When someone shows up in the ER, we can only treat the symptoms. And then there's no way to get people off bath salts who are addicted. I would suggest that we try to use cannabis, THC, which stimulates the same endocannabinoid receptors in the same way that we use methadone or Suboxone to get people off fentanyl. You replace a dangerous opiate that's going to kill you with a medically prescribed opiate that you could take every day, and then people live long, healthy lives and don't overdose. Maybe we could research using cannabis, medical cannabis, which is relatively safe, certainly 1,000 times safer than bath salts, to get people off bath salts. Of course, there's still a mental block in the medical community about studying and using cannabis for certain conditions. But anyways, thank you so much for listening today about bath salts. This is Dr. Peter Grinspoon, Grinspoon on Drugs. I'd just like to remind everybody that every video I post on my YouTube channel corresponds to a Substack article that I write. And if you're interested in these topics and want more detail, more content, please check out my Substack newsletter. You can find a link for it. All of this content is free. There are no paywalls. You can find a link for it in the notes for this YouTube channel. Thank you so much. This is Dr. Peter Grinspoon, Grinspoon on Drugs.